Hey, it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, My Sexual Life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality. So subscribe and hit the bell icon right now. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing how and when should you tell people about your asexuality if they're strangers or people you don't know very well that you're talking to. So obviously, people who know you really well probably already know you're asexual, but maybe they don't. And if you are finding it difficult to understand when to bring your asexuality up into conversation, then this video is for you. So tonight I went to a meetup and there only ended up being me and this guy there for a long time because it's raining in the UK at the moment. And then the organizer came later. Now, I happen to know the organizer a little bit from a time before when I used to go to Tech Exeter meetups years ago. And then he was there again today and he goes to Tech Exeter, but he actually runs meetups of his own now. And this is like a social meetup at 12 Bar where I've actually been before my own and I liked it. So he told me this morning at the Tech Exeter event that he wouldn't be able to get there till later. So I got there and there was this guy there and we got talking and he was really nice. And straight away, he was asking me like what I do. And I told him I got my YouTube channel, I'm a best-selling author. And he was asking about what topic. And I said asexuality. And I had to explain what that was. And so he was really good because he listened to what I was saying. He said that he found it fascinating and really interesting. And he thought he'd see me on OK Cupid because he recognized the fact that he's like, oh, I think I've seen you on OK Cupid because you have a bio that has a link to your channel and you say about being asexual. I said, yeah, that's what my bio usually is like, but I'm not on OK Cupid. I'm not only on Asexual Cupid, but it's part of the same company. So he said to me, it might be that they had an advert for people on Asexual Cupid on OK Cupid. As far as I know, I mean, I haven't been on Asexual Cupid for years, active on there, so I don't even know if I've still got a profile on there or not. But as far as I know, I'm not on OK Cupid. I'm just on Asexual Cupid. But I don't even know my password or anything like that to get on there. I don't think it would even come up. I can't even remember what email I used. But I would suspect that something's happened, like they've deleted it now, but maybe they haven't if he's seen me on there. So that was a really interesting conversation, and he was very open-minded. He was asking me about sex, which obviously can be a bit intrusive when you first meet someone, but I didn't think he was doing it in an intrusive way. I thought he was just really interested in what I had to say, and because he thought that asexuality meant no sexual activity. So he was like saying, oh, so you just don't have any sexual activity basically. And I'm like, no, it's not like that. So then I explained the difference between pure asexuals and grey asexuals. So I found it really nice tonight because I felt really included, welcomed, and made to feel like good about myself. I've achieved a lot, and that was really nice. Now, the guy who runs the asexual meetups, I have known him before, so he knows I'm asexual, and he's very open-minded and accepting about that. And so that was really good. So when you're around strangers, obviously the first guy I didn't know at all, but when you're around strangers, be proud of who you are and what you do, and if asexuality is a big feature in your life, or for example, if you're meeting people socially or possibly got people interested in dating you, for example, you should always bring it up immediately. You should bring it up first thing in your bio. You shouldn't be hiding this. Should be one of the very first things that you bring up that's in your bio, right? You shouldn't hide it. I was actually having the conversation with people from Tech Exeter, and we were talking about dating sites because a woman used to build dating sites for like 20 years. So she knows the workings of a Badoo, for example. It's very interesting conversation. And there was a guy I was talking to as well. And so I bring up, because I obviously do this channel and write books for asexuals, I bring up the fact I'm asexual straight away in conversation. When someone says, what do? I tell them. So you should bring up asexuality at your earliest convenience, at your earliest opportunity. That way people can get used to who you are and your sexual orientation. And the guy was saying, he was talking about dating sites for at Tech, etc. He was talking about dating sites, and he was saying about the fact that, if you get people who matched, on these dating sites, ones that got a high score overall with each other, then that's almost a certain match. I said, well, not necessarily, because they still might not be compatible. Even if they are aesthetically attracted to each other, they still might not be compatible. Do you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of guys as well on dating sites that lie, because they tick as many boxes as possible, which aren't even true, some of them, just to get as many matches as possible. So just because someone gets a high score doesn't mean to say they're actually suitable for you, because they could just be lying, which does happen a lot, and he said to me, I hope I think when you put a, your bio up, that you should put about being asexual first. Like, do you do that? And I'm like, yeah, I already do that. So if you're on an asexual dating site, and especially if you're like on a traditional dating site, like I have been, like a predominantly heteronormative site, right? Whatever dating site you're on, you should just put in your bio that you are asexual. You should be very upfront, but you should also tell them in a message as well, because I was trying to explain to the people this morning meetup, because I've been to 2 meetups today, this morning, that they don't take any notice. They just like my picture. And I've even been on video dates with guys who haven't even read my bio before they were on a video date with me. So I didn't even know I was asexual because they didn't read it. So now I have to spell it out. I have to go in message. I'm not active on dating sites anymore, but when I was active on them, I have to go and message them and say, have you read my bio? Because Badoo, for example, now just tells people to swipe 50 people, like 50 profiles. That's it. You're just a number. It's horrible. It's just so stupid. That's not how you're going to find a compatible match. I mean, theoretically, it's a numbers game, but if everyone's just swiping randomly on 50 people they don't even read their bio and don't give a shit about, it's not likely to be a very good match either, even if it is 50 you're swiping through. Do you know what I mean? So it's really not good. So if it's a stranger or someone you don't know well, first of all, if it's a stranger on a dating site, be upfront in your bio, and make sure when they message you, or you message anyone, that you let them know you're asexual, right? You might say, hey, how are you? And then if they stop talking to you, then you say, hey, did you read my bio? And then we're like, oh, of course I did, but they didn't really, they're just going to check it out. Or, yeah, I did. Like, I've heard of asexuality before, or tell me more about that. Or, yeah, I did. And then they might not even understand it. And then you need to explain it to them. Well, they might pretend they do understand it when they don't. So it's very important you do that. Right? It's no good being attached to this person if they don't want what you want. I'm in Matthew Hussey's Love Life Club. Matthew Hussey is the world's #1 dating confidence coach on YouTube with millions of subscribers. Been doing dating and relationships coaching and confidence coaching for over 17 years now. Been on lots of television shows, right? He knows what he's talking about. And the other day, when I was watching the group coaching, he even said something about sex is really important in a relationship. You need to have sex. And then I wrote in a message that I'm asexual. I don't like sex. I don't want it. And this other woman put there, I'm not into sex either. And then he said, oh, I'll rephrase that. Like, not everyone is into sex. So if you're not interested in sex, then you need to find someone else who also isn't interested in having sex. So that is his advice. And he said, he rephrased and said, not everyone does like sex, but if you're someone who does like sex and needs it in a relationship, then obviously you're not, he was trying to say you're not compatible. He said, if you need sex in a relationship and want it, this is what Matthew Hussey said, then that's one of the things that you need for compatibility. But if you're someone who doesn't like sex, then you should find someone else who doesn't want that. That's what Matthew's advice is. So it's really important you be upfront in your profile about these things, because a lot of the time it's a deal breaker, and there's no point in getting attached to someone and being attached to someone a month or 2 later, and they just want sex and you don't. It's a waste of frigging time. You're wasting your time and you're wasting their time. However much they might grow attached to you and start loving you, If a fundamental need of theirs is to have sex and yours is I don't want sex, and that's a fundamental need of yours, it's not going to work. It's not compatible. So you have to move on, right? Do it sooner rather than later. Don't let these things carry on and on, because it'll just lead to a lot of heartache, heartbreak, and pain. You don't want that, right? So be upfront in your dating profile, right? If you're on a dating site, even if you're just looking for friendship, most people that put they're just looking for friendship on dating sites are still not looking for friendship. If they're already in a relationship saying they're looking for a friendship, on a dating site, I'd to argue that something strange is going on in their relationship. Why are they on a dating site looking for other friends when they got their partner and presumably other friends either? Anyway, and I just think a lot of the time it's like they're edging their bets, like they want to have someone else in the background just in case their current relationship doesn't work out. Or they might friend you if you're an asexual person, thinking they're safe with you, so they can have this intimate emotional connection with you whilst still being with their primary partner, which is like cheating anyway. You've got to understand that cheating in relationships can look very different for different people. Some cheating could be that person flirts with someone else. Someone's opinion of cheating could be they just started writing hearts and kisses on someone else's post, even if they've known them a long time. It could be cheating, could be that they started like following loads of women when they're in a relationship with you. Cheating can be emotional cheating, doesn't have to be physical. So you have to understand that if someone's on a dating site in a relationship claiming they want friends, that is very dodgy. I don't really believe them. Right? Why would you go to a dating site like that? Why not just go to a meetup group? If you want friends, why not go to a meetup.com group? Why not go to local clubs? Why are you on a frigging dating site? Because I've had in the past some guys who tried to friend me, liked me, and said they're just looking for friendship. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not interested, because I'll likely get attached to that guy. He's in a relationship with someone else, and I feel guilty about being friends with him anyway when he's in a relationship and he's on a dating site. It's not good. So I don't think that's a way to go, right? So be upfront. If someone requests friendship, still check that they're fine about your asexuality. If they're not fine, then you don't be friends with them. But make sure that they understand that you're asexual and what that entails. Because when I was on Facebook dating, for example, they got a friendship button, but none of them were looking for friendship. I think there's one guy I met on there that was looking for friendship. He was looking for a relationship, but with me, it was looking for friendship or something, because he'd been in a relationship that didn't go well before. So he just wanted to give himself some time out. But he still really wanted a relationship, but he said he wasn't looking for that with me. It's just very strange. You don't want to be doing that. You want to have clear boundaries, guidelines, and you want to have clarity on what these people's intentions are, right? And a lot of the time when they put friendship, they're lying. They don't really just want friendship. That's not what they're looking for. So please be aware of this, right? And so be very upfront on dating sites, whether it's for friendship or whether it's a serious committed relationship, whatever it is, be honest. If you're on friendship sites, be honest again that you're asexual, right? Because just because someone says they're interested in friends again doesn't mean to say they don't want friends with benefits. You have to spell it out. If you're in any dating groups, you need to spell out you're asexual, right? If asexuality is a big part of your life, you shouldn't hold that back. If you go to meetups with people who aren't asexual, you should be able to talk freely about it still. Because if asexuality is a central part of who you are, and it's something that's fundamental to you, then you should be able to just share it freely. You shouldn't be shameful about it. You shouldn't live in fear of ridicule, right? So tonight, like I said, I went to the meetup this morning, which is a Tech Exeter event, which is great. I love the people there. And I also went to a social meetup tonight, right? Both times I talked about asexuality. And I talk about this channel on my books, and they're like, oh, what's your channel about? So I say, my channel's about asexuality, and I tell them what that means. And I was explaining to the guy, I was explaining this morning what it meant, and I was explaining this evening. But when we talk about asexuality, it gives us an opportunity to educate people, right? The more we're educated in the world about it, the more acceptance there is. And you might think, well, I don't need people to accept my asexuality, or I don't even need to tell them, right? Because it's none of their business. That's your prerogative. It really is. But if we want to think about the collectives in the world, the collective asexual people in the world, the huge amount of asexuals in the world that aren't even discovered yet as being asexual, we need to be thinking rather than just ourselves. We need to be thinking about, we need to spread awareness as much as possible. Maybe you can't do what I do. Maybe you can't do what other people do. You can't write books for asexuals. You can't be here talking on the internet about asexuality because that's just too much for you. It's too out of your comfort zone. But you can help asexuality. You can help us get recognized globally, one step at a time, by telling one person at least about asexuality, about the fact you're asexual and what that means to you. I think this is important. If you go to asexual meetups, but you're going to other meetups, explain. Like they say, what's your hobbies? Like, what do you like to do? I'm asexual. I actually like to go to asexual meetups. But I thought I'd give a different meetup a try. And they might be like, oh, what's that? Or before you even, before they even have time to think about it, because some people don't understand asexuality, just the word asexual freaks them out. So if you see them pause for thought, you then just step in and say, oh, I'm not sure if you've actually heard of asexuality. It means this, right? So instead of letting their mind wander onto what asexuality is, don't give them too much time to do that. Start talking about it straight away. And because you're helping a lot of people then, not just yourself, because if you tell one person, that person might tell a friend. It might be like, hey, I went to a meetup group today and there was this person there and they said they were asexual. I'd never heard of it. Like, have you heard of it before? Or they might go home and Google it. And this is how we can help spread more awareness. And this is how you can help asexuals on a global scale, even if you're just one person and you're telling just one person. And the reason it's important is because we need more awareness of asexuality, because there are people out there, people right now that are suffering in silence because they do not know their true sexual orientation identity. They have been sold a lie. And that lie is that they are heterosexual when they aren't. And unless we raise more awareness of asexuality, person by person, one by one, little by little, big by big, unless we explain what asexuality is and we start getting the word out there, then we can't make a true difference to society and allowing the future generations of asexuals to live in peace and harmony alongside sexuals. Right? We all need to do our bit in order to help raise awareness of asexuality. Yes, you don't have to tell anyone you're asexual. You can just forget not telling them. But I think it's very unfair if you don't tell someone that you're in a relationship with. I think you have to tell someone if you are dating or in a relationship. I think it's deeply unfair if you don't do that and if you hide it from them. I mean, obviously, there are exceptions to the rule if you're in a foreign country and you're with someone who's no good and who's bad for you and which you shouldn't be anyway. You shouldn't be with someone who can't accept your asexuality and who you have to, who's controlling you and you living in fear of. But if obviously you're in that situation where you're going to get hurt if you say something like that, then I can't advise to say that. But in everyday normal circumstances, even when asexuality isn't seen as a normal thing, but it is for some people, you do need to say it. And you need to say it as a matter of fact, as though it is normal, because it is. There's nothing wrong with being asexual. Nothing's broken. Nothing needs fixing. It's your sexual orientation. Just be confident and be strong. Because if you're confident and strong, then other people will automatically just assume that that is right, what you're saying, and that it's true. And they'll get curious. Like the guy did tonight was asking me about, I said, he was talking about like, so you don't engage in any sexual activity then? Like, there's nothing. I'm like, no, I have had sex in the past. And I explained why, because I thought that society, basically, that's what society made me think. that I had to have sex in order to be in a relationship. That was a normal thing, that's what I thought. And I said, there's also this thing where people say, oh, if you haven't had good sex, that's why you're asexual. I said, but I've had my last long-term relationship, it was good sex, but I just wasn't interested in doing it. I'd rather do the washing up, and I hate washing up. I really hate it. And I'd rather do the washing up than have sex because I wasn't bothered about or interested. And he's like, oh yeah, if you'd rather do that, then clearly, you're not wanting it. And I'm like, exactly. So give them things to relate to. Do analogies, like say, like some people like pizza, not everyone likes pizza. And therefore, like sex is like that. Some people like it, some people don't. Make analogies. Say things that are relatable, but be crystal clear in who you are. Like I'm saying I'm asexual, and the guy earlier today was going, oh, do they really exist? I said, well, yeah, they do exist because I'm here and I exist. Do you know what I mean? Because he was like, is that real? I'm like, yes, it is real. I'm really asexual. I found out in 2014 I'm asexual. And he's like, oh, so you've always been like that then, or something like me. I think he said something major like that. I said, no, I've always been like that, but didn't realise it. I even said that to Guy tonight in the social event, that I've always been asexual and didn't realise it. Like, even had my first heterosexual boyfriend at 6 years old, and I was still traumatised at 17 years old and going to see a counsellor about that. Because I felt invaded because he liked doing sexual exploration stuff and kissing. I just liked the kissing. And I felt invaded, but I lacked self-love, and just, it was horrible for me. And the counsellor said it's just doctors and nurses. And I was telling a complete stranger all this. Because I say a lot of this stuff on my channel anyway. You don't have to go into this much depth like I do. But, you shouldn't be afraid to be your asexual self. And the more you can explain to the person about your asexuality, how it affects you, and give them some insights as to what it looked like for you when you're asexual as a child or teenager. I said, like, when I was at school, I was attracted to guys, but I just wanted to kiss, cuddle, and hold hands with them. That's what I wanted to do. Having sex never entered my head. Like, when I was 15, my boyfriend at the time was 18, I said, he had a condom in the drawer, and he's like, oh, look, here's a condom. I'm like, oh, that's nice for you. I said, because I don't think about sex. I didn't think about sex. I didn't associate with him wanting sex with me. I just thought it was a nice thing for him to have. I said, because asexuals are wired differently. We think differently. So it's very important that people understand the differences between the way asexuals think and the way the rest of the world thinks, usually, right? The heteronormative sexual people, yeah? So I think it's really important that we, as a global community of asexuals, do speak our mind, do say we're asexual, and do explain what that means without having to explain ourselves as someone's being interrogational. I don't think you should respond to interrogations, like people who are going on at you and people who are talking about asexuality for the wrong reasons, such as they want to get aroused over talking to you about it and stuff like that. It's just disgusting, right? You don't want that. But if someone's asking you educational stuff, then tell them. If you're meeting a stranger, then yeah. I mean, if it's a meetup and it's not a, even if it's not for dating or friendship specifically, so social gathering, someone can still find you attractive and still think about potential relationship with you, even if that's not what the meetup's for. What it said it's for. So just be honest and upfront and say, in your conversation, like, hey, yeah, like, one of the things I like to do is go to asexual meetups. That could be online or in person. Or, like, I'm part of asexual groups on Facebook. What type of groups do you like on Facebook? Asexual is actually my sexual orientation. But I find it fascinating listening to other people who are asexual in these groups that I'm part of. You can say something like that to bring it into the conversation. You can even say that, if they say, oh, you single, then you say, yeah, I'm asexual. So, and then explain what that means for you. You just need to bring it up in conversation, and you don't have to bring it up in conversation. So say you went to a meetup, you don't have to bring it up into conversation. But if someone's at all flirting with you and stuff like that, then I think you should. Obviously, you can just move away and say nothing. You don't owe them anything. But I think it's better to be upfront in meetups and different situations as much as possible. But obviously, not everyone does need to know. If you're in a relationship, that should be a must. If you're dating, that should be a must. If you're on a dating site and they say that person's looking for friendship, you should tell them you're asexual, because a lot of the time it's not the truth. If asexuality is a big part of your life, like you go to asexual meetups, you attend pride events, you you have a lot of asexual friends, it's a big part of who you are, then you should mention it to people at other meetups, social gatherings and stuff, when you start getting to know people. Right? So when shouldn't you mention asexuality? You shouldn't mention it if your life's been threatened and you're in danger. Right? You should get to safety. You shouldn't mention it if it's at all going to be used against you, in terms of, like, I don't know what situation that would be, but if for example you're in a dating scenario and then, I don't know, someone could, like, I don't know if anyone could use asexuality against you. They could probably try to use the misconceptions about asexuality against you. So I think in that case, you should actually set them right on what they actually are. But you don't need to explain your asexuality or justify it. So if you've got someone on a dating site and they're going on saying, and you say, "Oh, I'm asexual, sexual orientation, I don't want sex," for example. If you don't, they might say, "Oh, well, what made you that way?" You don't have to entertain that type of questioning. You're not there to be interrogated, right? So whilst you've mentioned, or you're going to mention, that you're asexual, if you haven't already, you don't have to continue talking about asexuality. In that case, you would just be like, clearly we're not suitable. Bye. Because if a person, like, can't accept the fact you don't want sex, it doesn't really matter whether you're asexual or not. They shouldn't be asking you something, interrogating you about something that you don't want to do. They should just move on. So if you feel like, that your life's in danger, you don't need to talk about asexuality. If you feel like you're on dating sites and someone's just being really intrusive, then you might have already mentioned, obviously, asexuality. That's why they're being intrusive, but you don't need to go any further with that conversation. And if someone's being really rude and impolite, then you don't need to tell them about your asexuality. If you're on a dating site, for example, and they're just being rude about other things, then don't bother going into asexuality. It's irrelevant, because you're not going to carry on talking to them. So you only need to mention asexuality to people that obviously you feel most comfortable around, people that you think are open-minded, people who you think are respectful, and people who you do not care about their reaction, whether they react in a good way or a bad way. So, yeah. But every opportunity to talk about asexuality is a good thing to help the greater cause of getting asexuality recognised globally as a sexual orientation in its own right, which is my mission. And I'd encourage you to be able to help with that mission. I think everyone needs to do it as a collective. We all need to talk more about asexuality, what it means to us. When I started saying I held asexual meetups in my city, and that's how I overcame social anxiety. When I started holding asexual meetups in 2015, they're like, "Wow," you know what I mean? Like, and like one of the guys is like, "Oh, you knew your life purpose then," you know what I mean? And I'm like, "Yeah, to help asexual." So it's a good thing. All this is really good when you explain it. When I said in this title of this video, like, how do you explain it? You explain it, what asexuality means in general, and then what it means for you personally, because you don't want to be putting in people's heads stuff about asexuality that isn't true for the general main and misinform them. So I'm a hyper romantic and a hyper kisser, asexual. Excuse me, but I make it clear that other asexuals aren't like that. Most asexuals do not like kissing. If they do like kissing, it's usually a little peck on the cheek or a little kiss like that. They don't usually like kissing as much as I do. They're not into romance as much as I am, or at all. So when you're talking about asexuality, how you explain it is you explain you're asexual, what things you do in your asexuality, like if you go to meetups, if you like wearing asexual type, clothing. You explain all the positives about asexuality that you feel. You explain how good asexuality is. You just be very strong when you're talking about it. Right? Any sort of weakness, and the wrong person you tell could try and use it against you and try and change your wording. But hopefully you're going to be around people that are good people, which a lot of people are at meetups, for example, because they're going there to meet other people. then, and to talk about different things, then be strong. Be strong in character and in conviction of who you are in your asexual identity. Don't be wishy-washy, just be like, this is me, this is what I am. But you explain asexuality as a general definition, then explain what asexuality means for you, so that you are not making people believe that every asexual person's like you and you're typical, right? So do that, and then explain, if you need to, for example, if it's on a dating site, how your asexuality affects you in relationships. It might even affect you in friendships. Like if you've got people obviously who are dismissive, that's no good, right? So make sure that you're talking to people who are understanding. Anyone who stops being understanding or gets condescending or belittling or nasty, you just don't owe them any more conversation. Don't owe anyone a conversation anyway, but I think it's important to educate people about what asexuality is and what asexuality isn't, and what asexuality means to you, and how much you enjoy your asexual life. All this is really positive. So when you explain asexuality, you explain it in a very positive, matter-of-fact way that's educational. And you do it around multiple different types of people to actually get used to talking about your asexuality as well and getting out of your comfort zone. The more people you speak to about your asexuality, the more confident you'll be and comfortable you'll feel in and of your own asexual sexual orientation identity. I hope you found this video useful, helpful, and insightful. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell icon so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to grab a copy of my Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual. 78 life lessons to ace your life. Don't miss those life lessons. And Asexual Perspectives, 47 asexual stories, love, life, and sex, a celebration of asexual diversity. And keep being positive about your asexuality. Speak up, speak clearly, be confident, be beautiful, asexual you. Lots of love. Subscribe and hit the bell icon. Bye.